help you get into architecture school. Everything you need in this one video. We're going to outline what you need for your essays, how to structure your portfolio, and how to get through and finish the interview. And I'm going to do this all for free because honestly, getting into school is about you, right? It's about your resolve, it's about your dedication, it's about who puts in the work and who doesn't. I'm not a fan, and I really don't suggest anyone throw a bunch of money at overpriced pre-university courses. Some of them call them enrichment courses or even like admissions tutors, because it's totally feasible by yourself. You just have to have the resolve to do it. More than 14,000 applicants, people just like you who want to start their architectural journey here in Canada, apply to the top 10 universities every year. And guess how many make it in? Only 4%. So your odds are kind of stacked against you. Now, 3 years ago, I was in the same position as you. And after applying to all my programs and getting into every single university I applied to, some of the programs, not gonna lie, were more competitive than architecture. I realized at the end that it's not that hard to get into school if you are smart about it and you put in the work and you're mindful of a couple little tricks that I'm going to outline for you in this video. So today in this video, I'm going to show you how to create an undeniably impressive architecture application. We're going to start from the very beginning, where I'll break down what universities are really worth your time, because architecture is a program where once you get into it, you're locked in, and if you choose the wrong program, you're kind of screwed. Then I'll teach you how to write persuasive and impressionable essays without sounding like the truckload of other people out there. And lastly, we'll develop a portfolio that outshines the competition. I'm also going to be real with you and not sugarcoat anything, because university is not all sunshine and flowers, it's not all fun and games. It's about who makes it and who doesn't, right? Because of the competitive nature, there are some ethical ways to apply, some unethical ways to apply, and I honestly really don't care which way you go, just do it correctly, and I'll address both in this video. Everywhere you go, you are experiencing architecture. When you wake up in the morning in your room, when you cross the street and enter a coffee shop, you are being part of a designed world, and being an architect gives you the power to design your world. So, how do you become an architect? Well, in Canada, education is still a priority. Before, what you could do is drop out of high school, find an architecture firm who wanted an intern, and just kind of stay there for the next 40 to 50 years of your life. But nowadays you can't do that anymore. So education plays the largest role in determining your success and where you are in your future. You first get your bachelor's, and then you get your master's, and then you gotta work a couple years before you're licensed and you can become a real architect. It's a straightforward process, but once you're in, you're basically locked down for the next 5-10 years of your life. So it's crucial that you make the right decisions early on, especially when deciding which program you're going into. In Canada, there are a number of architecture programs, and when you look at the names, they all seem pretty similar. But you really have to do your homework here, because half of them are actually visual art degrees, and then the other half are engineering degrees. The engineering degrees are kind of what you call the real architecture degrees, but each of the degrees have their pros and cons. I'm going to be a little bit biased, of course, because I decided to go into one of the engineering programs, and that was through a lot of deliberate consideration. And when I first got my acceptances, I was actually seconds away from clicking into a specific, I'm not gonna name it, but this program here, I thought it was super good, top name university, but then I sat down and I thought, hey, something's a little off. You're saying you're offering an architecture program, but it's not actually an architecture degree, it's a visual arts degree. And I've heard that the portfolio is actually optional for you to apply. So if you really think about it, architecture degrees and art degrees are really heavily emphasized on a portfolio. If the school doesn't even ask you for one when you apply, are they really taking the program seriously? And then the more I dived into it, I found some super expensive enrichment program, which then made me question, hey, isn't this the stuff you're supposed to teach to your students during university? Like, isn't this what they're supposed to be paying tuition for? And to me now it just seems like a whole money, I wouldn't call it a scam, I don't want to piss anyone off, but I looked at this and I was like, yo, that's kind of scammy. You can't just list a course out there for high school students who are already so desperate to get into university and think that, oh, if I don't take this course, if I don't take this enrichment program, I'm gonna fall behind. And that's definitely not the case. So do your research on the programs you want to get into. I would say this one is honestly the biggest red flag that I've seen, and I can say that now that I'm in architecture school and I've seen what other architecture schools do. I don't recommend this. I know people from here, they are great people, but if we're thinking career-wise and actually thinking about a future in this competitive market, just stay away from it. Another big part of it, now we're looking at everything objectively now. I know I'm pretty biased and I can be subjective towards things, but objectively, you always want to graduate with more work experience than everyone. So you want to get into a program that offers cooperative internships. I chose Waterloo mainly because of this. You can also go to other universities like TMU or Dalhousie. I really caution you against programs that say they have co-op, but once you dig into it, it's actually like, oh, you have to apply to be in co-op and you might get in, might not. It's just not a smart move in any way, especially because architecture, what they teach you in school versus what you do at work, completely different. And you just really have to be real with yourself and think, in this economy, in this roller coaster of an economy, do you really have the time to spare to go run around with art theory and learning about this old white man who designed the house or this other old white man that designed the house and all the artsy fartsy stuff? Or are you gonna dabble in a little bit of that, but then go get a job that teaches you real skills that you can apply, right? And so when it comes down to it, objectively, these programs are the ones worth your time. And I think you should just choose a program that you think works for you and just stick with it and focus on making the best application for that university. Okay, so once you've chosen your program, the first step in any university application are your essays. They might not be called essays, they might be called your introductions or whatever. I think universities are really trying to lower the stress that comes with applying, but honestly, they're still essays. And I've read a fair amount of them, I've written a fair amount of them, and they're really, really bad. And it's not about the people writing them. Honestly, it's just the whole notion of an application essay that makes it bad, right? Most of the time, they rarely sound authentic and come off as some like glorified sob story. Because I bet you, when you start writing an application essay, you're gonna over-exaggerate some points, of maybe some little achievement that you made in life, and then try to play it humble, and then write down the word passion more times than you've actually said it in real life, right? Because we're all trying to make a good impression, but there are definitely smarter ways of doing it, so I'm going to teach you how to write a proper essay. The first step is to stop the drama. I know we're all trying to be impressive, I know we're all trying to be persuasive, but when you're writing your essay, it's really easy to come off as sounding very desperate. And you don't want to sound very desperate. What we want to do is come off as confident as we can. There are two reasons. One, when you sound confident, the flaws in your writing are less apparent, because when you're desperate and you're over-exaggerating and pulling at parts of the essay, different flaws or like little gaps in your story become really, really apparent. And the largest eyebrow raiser is a fictional sounding story, right? I'll dive more into this in a moment, but I think instead of me rambling about this, why don't we take a look at an example of an application essay. Maybe you really were, but from the way it's written, right from the get-go, I'm thinking, were you really? Come on. And I'm already anticipating some child prodigy story or some other really stretched narrative. You're trying to make this sound like it's some profound insight by contrasting the emotional experience of a space, but you're doing it so by negatively contrasting it with the programmatic function, aka you're trying to sound like you understand what you're saying, but you're really not. And you need to remember, people who read this know architecture. Okay, let's rewrite this. I was 7. I would walk into the toy store with my friends, and unsurprisingly make our way over to the Barbie aisle. I'll admit, we might have had a few instances where our moms had to drag us out, kicking and screaming, gripping onto the toy that we wanted for dear life. To passersby, this must have been a funny sight, because more than often, I would cling onto the large dollhouses, which were more than half my height. I didn't want more Barbies. I wanted the perfect house for my Barbie. I didn't know what an architect was, but I knew I wanted to design spaces. I was a little girl who dreamed to be an architect, who at the time was only concerned about the design of elaborate, yet welcoming interiors and exteriors. To a 7-year-old, this meant bright pink wallpaper. Yet I was ignorant of the real meaning behind a home and the process of constructing one. Now, as I wake up in my non-pink bedroom and live out my day in a design world, I realize how deeply architecture influences the way people live, eat, sleep, and perform numerous other activities. My interest in architecture as a profession derives from the process in which the programmatic function of a space is enhanced with a feeling of belonging. A home is not a pretty plastic mansion, mass manufactured as a one-size-fits-all, but a place where every person can be their own unique self and come together at the end of the day and share stories and a meal. I realize the world we live in is not designed perfectly, but that doesn't mean I can't try. The impact I can make is beyond dollhouses, so I want to learn everything there is to be an architect. And I believe the best place for me to do so is here at the insert institution name here. So what we've just done is rewritten this with the same amount of emotional impact, but it's just more realistic and digestible. So here's a list of the tactics we used when rewriting the essay. First of all, we're making it realistic. We're introducing a scenario which your admissions officer has probably seen of, heard of, experienced, etc. They know this is something that happens. You give them this scenario, they're probably going to think back to when they saw some mom wrestling her kid at Walmart. Secondly, we're adding a small touch of humor, which is a positive emotion, and makes the tone of the essay more comfortable. Thirdly, we're opening ourselves up to learn. We're not pretending to know more than we do. And this is a better tactic to appear humble than directly saying, since I've matured and gained knowledge. Then we're showing that we have reason and intention to learn. And we're making it specific to a university by directly stating our intent. Because university pride is real. University pride is strong. use it to your advantage. People love to say, oh, I'm from this university. I'm so proud to be from this university, right? So use it as a tactic. But maybe you're not even here yet. Maybe you're thinking, oh, I don't have a story like this to tell. So this is where the ethical and unethical side of things get blurred. And people are gonna think, well, you know what, I can make up a story and who's gonna know?
Nobody's gonna know.
They're gonna know.
How would they know?
If you're going to bullshit, at least do it properly, right? A story becomes stronger when there are components to back it up. And if you bullshit some story that doesn't align with anything else you've submitted, you're basically screwed. Now, the formula is interest plus action equals story. Interest as in hobby, action as in something as in volunteering, and then you have your story. This means if you really don't have a good story, then nothing's happened in life that made you be like, click, I want to be an architect. What you want to do is go find an action that you can take. Go volunteer somewhere. Go do an activity where you can pull something out of it. Right? There's so many volunteer opportunities everywhere. Even if you go like build Lego with after school kids, you can still turn that into a story. The worst thing you can do is try to BS a story out of thin air, because there's gonna be so many plot holes in it that you might not be aware of, but your admissions officer can probably catch on to. So yeah, moral of the story, if you're going to bullshit, have something to back it up with. Something I need to mention on the side is nobody gives a shit about how many volunteer hours you have. There's really no difference between someone in the hundreds and someone who only has like 60, 70, 80 hours. So don't waste your time volunteering. It's really about quality instead of quantity. If you have a quality volunteer exercise, that can help you much more than stretching yourself thin and trying to volunteer everywhere you can. Something we talked about when we rewrote our essay is relatability. You want to think about your admissions officer who's reading thousands of applications every day. After the first 10 to 20 applications, they're already desensitized to any drama or any fictional sounding story. And that doesn't really work in your favor, right? So as an applicant, you have to think, how do you write something that's perfectly balanced in terms of it having a captivating story, but still being realistic. So I'm going to show you how to make the perfect outline. Here's exactly what you're going to do. Step 1, you're going to open a new document, blank document, whatever, and write the most brain-dead generic application essay that you can, where you're just spewing out every single thing that comes to mind. You can change topics, just put everything out. And you're going to take this junk and make 2 copies. Edit the first one as if you were the most pretentious prick in the world. Don't worry about cringe or exaggeration. Just do it. Pretend you're bragging your heart out. Once that's done, you're going to take the second copy and edit it as if you were lounging on the couch in your PJs, belly out, watching Netflix or something. Just a really chill tone. So now you have 2 versions on your hand. One which is obnoxiously over the top, and one which is chill and casual. So 2 opposite sides of the spectrum. And the next step is really, 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 really important. You're going to leave it. You're going to put it down. You're going to go touch some grass. You're going to go live a life. You're going to step back from it for a minimum of 3 days. After the 3 days, you're going to come back and you're going to analyze the 2 essays, the 2 versions of the essay that you've written. Highlight what sounds good. Underline what is a bit of a stretch. And bold parts where you think can develop into a better story. Once you do that for both sides, then congratulations. You've now created a guideline, an outline of what you need to include in your perfect essay. We're kind of going with the whole notion of if you have +1 and -1, they'll balance each other out. The last thing I want to share with you guys in terms of essays is less of a tip. It's more of a mindset, and for some of you it's a wake-up call. Because we have to be realistic here. And once you understand this, you you'll be able to be more aware of some different opportunities that arise and maybe some other tactics that you can use in your essay. And the thing I want to say is that you need to think about how you are an investment that the university is making. I'd be lying to you if I said they accept you because they were, so touched, so moved by your essay, and they want you under their wing. No. Universities are an institution. Institutions are businesses. To them, you're nothing but a number in the year's statistics. And you are an asset to the business. And if you're accepted, it's probably because of one of these reasons. One, you're obviously providing them financial gain through tuition. We all know that. But they think you will study hard enough and maintain good grades so the university can maintain their good standing and entice other people to come, right? You always want a high-ranking university. How do you get high ranking? You accept good students. That brings us to the point that they're betting on the fact that you're going to graduate the program because dropouts are a major money loss. And once you graduate, universities have a well-known tactic that they will hound you year after year for donations, and that's also part of their money game. And then lastly, it goes without saying that if you're an international student, you're kind of just a money pool that they're waiting to dig into because there's really no reason why international student tuition is so high, but universities are just banking off of it. And I'm saying all this, you might be thinking universities are really shady, but they're just businesses, right? There's businesses everywhere. This is how the business needs to function. And what you're benefiting from is the employability and the benefits from graduating from a well-known, well-respected university. So keep this in mind. Don't be naive. Again, I'm going to reiterate. Do not waste your time on any summer enrichment program that any school is enticing you to do. They're supposed to teach you everything you need to know. You're paying tuition for a reason. Why are you paying before you even start school for some knowledge that's just going to be fed back to you in first year, right? So do your research, be smart, figure out why the university is like charging this amount of money for this thing, and just be really smart about it. Okay, moving on to the portfolio. Essays were the appetizers. This is the main course because you can sweet talk your way through an essay. We went through how you can BS that shit. But if your drawings and your portfolio is not on par, you're out. Portfolios are what make or break your application, so you want to get it right. Before we get into it, I would really appreciate it if you guys took the 2 seconds it takes to click the like and the subscribe button. I'm not gonna ask you to ding the bell because I hate it when they're like, oh, ding the bell, and then I get like 20 million notifications that flood my inbox. So, all I ask, I just hiccuped there. All I ask is a like and a subscribe, maybe a comment for all this free content that I'm making for you guys. When I was applying about 3 years ago, Raya, I think that's how you say her name, uploaded a video about her application portfolio, and back then it was one of the only videos online. Now there's a lot, but there was a notable increase in the amount of portfolios that year which used the same contents page as her. And the same goes for when I uploaded my portfolio video and offhandedly mentioned this little banner. And as I'm shuffling through application portfolios now, I'm seeing a lot of this banner. Basically, as a rule of thumb, if it has already been done, don't do it. The university, they mostly keep the same judges panel every year, so the admissions panel has already seen that being used on a portfolio. It might be impressive at first, but once you see more of it, it's just bleh, right? And it might work against you because you're not showing anything new. To them, it's another portfolio that they can just kind of like tuck away in the back of their mind. So don't focus on what other people have done, focus on what you can do. And the one thing you have the most control over is the structure of your portfolio, aka your layout. There are so many ways you can lay out your portfolio, but there's also a shitload of ways where you can mess it up. It's not about how quirky and different your portfolio is from everyone else. It's about how clear and effective it is at displaying your art. Stick to the fundamentals. When it comes to a portfolio, the simpler, the better. There is a tried and true method, and I'm going to outline to you exactly every single thing down to the fonts, the sizing of everything, the margins, everything you need to create the perfect layout. Because it's not about what flashy Canva template you can use. I, honest to God, have a gripe with those who think they can just throw it onto some flowery decorative Canva template and then call themselves a graphic designer. Those are honestly just a lot of visual clutter. I'm going to show you how to develop a perfect portfolio layout that the panel is going to eat up because they love minimalism. And honestly, it's not just any panels. Like all architects, they just love minimalism and clean lines and just straight to the point information. So let's go through and I'm going to show you how to make the only portfolio layout you need. Your background, blank, 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 blank. The most it can go to is this degree of beige, but nothing too dark or too cold or too warm, because it just becomes a lot of visual distraction in the back, and a lot of the times it doesn't contrast the art the way we want it to. So, nice, blank, white background. Keep it simple. Now that we have our background, let's set ratios. Your layout needs to be consistent. Image to text ratios should allow for both components to breathe, right? 50-50 is terrible for your layout. Honestly, it looks like trash. 70-30 is kind of a bit too squishy on the 30 side of things. So we're going to use a 60-40 split, which means we're taking the 8.5 by 11 panel and dividing it like so. I'm going to have some animations here. I know. I'm showing you everything here visually. Now then, we need to set margins. Right? This is where many people screw up, especially when making a portfolio, because the one issue you notice right off the hand is if someone is inconsistent with their margins, and then it makes it look tacky. Right? You can either have overflow or you can have too much negative space. And as soon as I sit in a portfolio, I kind of just want to like crumple it up and throw it in the trash. So here we're going to use 1-inch margins. Again, simple, straightforward. And everything needs to be fitted in here as much as possible. So, as an example, let's put some images in. What you want to do here is impress with quality. Most phones nowadays can capture good photos, but if you can go borrow a camera and take the best photos you can outside, under the sun, and natural lighting, everything comes out perfectly. Because drawing is all about technique, drawing is all about detail. Right, so you need to make sure nothing comes out pixelated or blurry. Again, a huge mistake is when people have super warm light because they're taking it in the corner of their bedroom, or they have super cold light, and it just looks disgusting. Something else that's disgusting is stylized fonts. I don't know what it is with you guys. You need to think about general legibility, right? Use a sans serif font for the majority of it. Your body text isn't going to be long enough to need a serif font. So choose one of these sans serif fonts and you're going to use it as the one font throughout your whole portfolio. You can bold it, you can caps it, you can italicize it. But don't go and try to be unique and try to be quirky, because it just looks terrible. And they really don't care what your text looks like. They just care if it's easy to read and it doesn't detract from the art that's right beside it. The only place where you can use stylized fonts is in the title page. Most people have their names in like some huge font. That's totally fine. Now let's talk about font sizes. Really easy. We're going 16, 10, 10, 8. What this means is 16 point as your heading, 10 point italicized as your subheading, 10-point font as your body font, and then 8-point font for any subtitles or subscripts. And a lot of the times we'll use 8-point font to note the medium and the size of the art. I'm giving you these guidelines because this is what's legible, this is what works. If you go anything too big, it takes up too much space. Anything too small, it becomes illegible. You have to think they're looking at it from a laptop screen or they're projecting it on a wall, right? So you need to make it as legible universally as possible. Okay, last thing here is interviews. A lot of universities will get you through an interview round, either online or in person. I know Waterloo is really big on their interviews. And UBC, if I remember correctly, also had an interview. I don't think UofT had one when I applied. So when it comes to your interview, what I can say for sure is if you can do it online, do it online. I know universities want you to go in person, but it's just so much easier for you to be confident online, right? Even the most confident people will start shaking in their boots once they see the teachers and the professors and whoever else is on the panel. And confidence, again, is just key. Now, if you're going in person, you need to show some maturity. Maturity is sitting up straight. Maturity is making eye contact, even if you're scared shitless, okay? Maturity is showing up dressed cleanly. No loud logos. Try to avoid logos if possible. No hoodies, no sweatpants. I think if you're arriving to such an important interview in your casual outfits with your tie-dye hoodies, that's like a sign of immaturity. You need to take this seriously. If you win at first impressions, they will remember you and your chances of getting in through the roof. So, dress smart, dress clean, wash your hair, comb your hair, whatever. Maybe don't go overboard with perfume because I know people don't like that in institutions anymore. But yeah, just be clean, be mature about it. When you're doing the actual interview, don't think of it as an interrogation, right? It's not about them interrogating you. What you can do instead is kind of flip the table on them and impress everyone by pretending you're the CEO, they're your employees, you're standing up and you're giving a report about the amazing things that you've done. I think most of the time, now this was different because I had to do my interview online and they had to submit a lot of different online things, but when you're in person, I know it's really hard to keep eye contact. A good rule of thumb is you don't have to look at their eyes. If it makes you feel better, you look at the top of their eyebrows. Don't stare at their nose or their forehead. It's scientifically shown, I don't know if scientifically is the word for it, but it's very true that if you stare at someone's nose, the tip of their nose, if you stare at someone's forehead, it's going to make them feel anxious, and you don't want anyone on your panel to feel anxious. So, eye contact, if not eyes, eyebrows, okay. And then you want to control the narrative, right? A lot of kids will just sit there like they're stupid and wait for questions to come at them. This is a great opportunity for you to just be different than everyone else. This is where you can be different, not when you're making your portfolio, but here. You have to open yourself up and kind of control the conversation and be like, hi, my name is blah, 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 and ask everyone what their name is, right? Once they tell you, handshake, or just say like, hello, nice to meet you. Once you sit down and once you start a conversation, you want to try to use their name as much as possible, right? Don't use it too many times so that it's obvious, but people love listening to their names. You can be like, okay, let's say a professor named was Bob, right? He asks you a question and you're like, great question, Bob. This is my take on things. This is my opinion. This is why I did this piece of art. But I'm curious as if when you first saw it, if you interpreted it a different way than I did. All of a sudden, they directed a question to you, but you're directing the question back to them. And for them, it's really impressive. Like, they're like, whoa, this kid is really into it. This kid is really mature. This kid can lead a conversation. This is what universities eat up. Go onto YouTube, search up different conversation tactics, search up ways to make you feel more confident. Do whatever you can, but just see if you can put as many tricks up your sleeve and then pull them out during the interview. If you made it to this section of the video, I really want to thank you. This video was actually supposed to be filmed almost a month ago, actually more than a month ago, but with life I got sick a couple times, and then some things came up in the schedule and I was never able to actually sit down and film this video. So now that I have, I'm really thankful that you've watched it through. I'm not an expert on these things. I'm just sharing what I know and what I can share with you. And I really hope that people who watch this video find the success that they're looking for. Because if you're on YouTube and if you're searching up architecture and you're finding videos like this, which are supposed to help you get into architecture school, you're already taking the most important first step towards your application, which is demonstrating the initiative and the research that goes behind ensuring you make a good application.